Welcome back to the Gray Report. Matt, how's it going?
Pretty good. I'm excited to hear what happened at NMHC. We've heard it mediated through different AIs, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the human Spencer Spencer thinks. Although I did think that when you ran it through DeepSeek, it was a little more detailed than ChatGPT.
I was having fun, and I'll just give you a little inside baseball of what was going
Yeah.
on. So, I was at the National Multifamily Housing Council, and at NMHC, it's a meeting. There's meetings within meetings within meetings. It's like multifamily conference inception. Yeah.
Is NMHC the biggest, or is there a NAIP or National Apartment Association?
Yeah, the apartment association has their own conference. There's a lot of big conferences.
Okay.
NMHC is I don't know exactly the numbers of the people attending, but it certainly is the big show.
Okay.
And the folks that are there it's different from other. I've been to a lot of different conferences. NMHC, there's no real trade show. So it's not a lot of vendors. It's not learning about multifamily. It's not necessarily multifamily like retail investors meeting, sponsors.
Okay.
I'm not going there to raise capital, although you can raise capital. Typically for more institutional groups.
Okay.
It's where owners, brokers, and lenders. Those are really the three big groups, and it's the biggest of the country.
Okay.
You've got your gray stars that are managing like 200,000 apartment units. You've got all the nation's largest brokerage shops and all of their directors and their leadership. And then NMHC does a lot of lobbying work as well. They have a PAC that goes to Capitol Hill. They hire lobbyists and advocate for housing policy and housing reform. We've covered their letters multiple times here on the Gray Report. So, and then inside just this large annual meeting, and of course they have actual meetings for NMHC. There's political action meetings. There's operations meetings, and they also host it's called the Strategies Conference. And so it's a one-day event, whereas NMHC is about like 4 days in total. One day is the Strategies Conference.
Okay.
It's like 6 hours long, and it's all about really what we talk about on a daily basis. And so I was really daily basis, we're on the show once a week. What are the latest trends? Talking about markets, operations, politics, and not everyone goes to that because they're busy doing one-on-one meetings, which is the primary purpose. But I like to push my meetings off for Wednesday, mostly Wednesday, a little bit Thursday, and I try to focus on the strategies conference.
Yep.
And I like to take a lot of notes and to try to bring those notes back because it's some of the top economists, folks that we interview on the Gray Report, but it's also some of the big owners, and just getting what their perspective is from different geographies, not just in the Midwest, not just the Sun Belt, all over the place. And so I was sitting there taking notes, trying to take as fast as I could, like I've done in the past.
Yeah.
And then I had my iPad with me, and I had just downloaded DeepSeek because this was like the week after the volatility in the market as kind of the DeepSeek's model came out and sort of disrupting ChatGPT, and NVIDIA's stock price was cratering.
Yeah.
And I was like, I gotta just check this thing out because I like using ChatGPT as a useful tool and to play around with. But first I started with ChatGPT, and I just turned on the recording feature where it just records audio, and I was sitting kind of pretty close to the back, and I just let it go, and I would record 10 minutes at a time while I took my own notes and listened, and then
It records and it automatically transcribes?
it records and transcribes. And so I would basically just dump the transcription into ChatGPT to summarize, and then I would also drop in my notes as well, and it would give a really good summary of the conversation, really detailed and really nuanced. And then at the end of that, so I had basically all my notes to try to give a little bit more context and what I thought were key takeaways, which may have influenced the notes a little bit or the output and the prompt. I took all of that information, all of the transcripts, all of my notes, and I dumped it all in the DeepSeek after I had ChatGPT summarize, synthesize, and have an output.
Yep.
Everything from write me a memo for my team to summarize, as well as write me up a LinkedIn post. I dumped it all in the DeepSeek just to compare formatting And yeah, I thought DeepSeek actually did a little bit better job of the analysis.
Yeah.
But it was fascinating. You can check out those posts on LinkedIn. And I know you and Blake talked about some of the takeaways on the show last week, kind of almost in real time.
Yeah, we got the ChatGPT, not the DeepSeek one. But what was interesting though was that DeepSeek seemed to pull some more, pull some regional stuff that I don't think that ChatGPT touched on as much.
What I found was interesting. I made a comment on LinkedIn saying, and this was like as I'm there in the conference listening to everyone, and it's the same old story of talking about the Sun Belt, talking about gateway markets, which again, that's what a lot of investors are. That's what a lot of inventory is.
Yep.
So I know there's the audience is there, but as we cover this on a weekly basis, man, we know the Midwest and the Northeast have really been outperforming, and the Midwest has really been the true surpriser. It's been a sleeper for the last decade plus, and I started going to NMHC about 5 years ago, and I remember being amazed that almost no time was spent talking about the Midwest.
Yep.
And it's usually in the form of like mentioning Chicago, which Chicago's in the Midwest, but like Chicago's different from like the rest of the Midwest because there's no other like city like Chicago. It's a big city, different set of demand drivers, different types of demographics, et cetera. And so I thought this year, though, maybe there's going to be a little bit more highlight. And there certainly was relative to past years. It was mentioned, it was acknowledged, but it was like in the periphery. It was like on like the tail end of a conversation. Yep. But I dump all this into DeepSeek, and it picks out, even though the specific questions that were asked, the topics that were discussed were not all in the Midwest, it still pulled out that one of the big takeaways was opportunities in the Midwest, specifically, as a major takeaway. And a lot of the conversations that individuals with brokers and owners were of those saying, yeah, we're taking a look at the Midwest now, and people calling it essentially the new emerging market because of this shift of surging of jobs, of manufacturing renaissance that's going on, that whether it's batteries, solar panels, EVs, data centers.
Now, I heard data centers is like you just need one guy to run it, just turns it on and hooks the cables.
I think it's more than one guy, but it's not like hundreds of guys. Well, there's an article in the Indianapolis Business Journal that came out a couple of days ago that it was all about how Indiana is specifically set up to excel with data centers because we have the energy. We have excess energy production.
Okay.
I guess we have capacity to produce more energy, I guess. And we also have a ton of water.
Yeah.
So like we've got all these natural resources that can support, high energy use, high data use, running all those GPUs, which is interesting because, again, just the Midwest, to a lot of coastal investors, has been written off as Rust Belt flyover country, that, the factory and steel jobs all went out of business in the late 70s and 80s, and then they just never looked back to learn any more information about it.
I have a hard time believing that someone would invest so much money for a data center and it not be a source of some jobs that are persistent, and maybe even jobs that we're not even factoring in right now. So, like people, so what I've heard in the Reddit comments, the Indiana subreddit comments was, and they're obviously of a certain
source.
Yeah, they're obviously of a certain bent, but I was kind of repeating their criticism was really, it's not really bringing in jobs. It's basically a giant warehouse full of computers. You need a guy to maybe fix it if they break, but it's not like they're building the computers there or anything like that.
True.
I think there's jobs we haven't thought about that are going to be involved in that. Maybe they center people here because there's a lot of millions of dollars that they're they need to be
somebody's got to like fix the GPUs when they break down. But I mean, there are people that have to can perform maintenance on the building. But it's not thousands of jobs. I think like the Meta's data center down in Jeffersonville, which is good. The price tags on these things also. It's like they've estimated 1.3 to like 2.8 or 3 billion. It's like, is it 1.5 billion to 3 billion? What's another billion amongst friends? But they're projecting to be 100 jobs.
Yeah.
So now, if it was a $2 billion facility of any other kind, you'd be thinking it would be thousands of jobs. So it's not one job, but it's not thousands of jobs. But those 100 jobs be relatively high paying, and then again, I think there's probably some ancillary services that are around that as well.
It's good news, I think, unless and there was the other argument was. Does it mean that does it disrupt like water or does it make power more expensive? Would be another like argument about data centers, and I don't know how that's going to happen. Let's hope for the best.
Well, and we're getting off topic, but
sorry.
I mean, it's I think it's one of these. I mean, it's a major AI. I mean, getting back to data centers and just why AI was a topic throughout NMHC. I mean, between just the ability to disrupt information. I mean, the economist was talking basically about how like his job, in a lot of white collar jobs, are much more at risk. Due to, he's like, look, all I do is I take in information and I synthesize it and I explain it to people in an easy to understand way. And that's what all these large language models do also.
And supposedly one of the first ChatGPT AI agent things, like they're beta testing their like researcher agent. That's the first thing, is just getting a bunch of links. I think obviously there's a role for the human. I've said this a million times, people don't talk to each other just to convey information. You want to connect with someone else, and there's always going to be that person that's connecting, and you always want to attach a piece of information, ideally to a human that's kind of responsible for it. So I think it's not a zero-sum game here.
No, there's a lot of norms that are gonna have to be kind of created and
like
standards and
all those ums and ahs and human imperfections. That's what people like.
And I wonder if AI will be able to get all those imperfections correct, because without that, it starts to become so artificial. But no, there's going to be more value on authenticity, because I was thinking about this. I was putting these 10-page research documents together in like 30 seconds, and so I had these two feelings. On one hand, I'm like, this is incredibly powerful. I did this while I'm paying attention in a seat at this conference. I can send it out to my team. I can post on social media. I can do marketing. It accelerates all that productivity, but I'm like, but I didn't feel nearly as satisfied as if I had actually written that 10-page report. It was like, I'm glad, this is great that we could put this together. I kind of have to read through it to make sure that it's actually accurate and it's not inferring things that I wasn't inferring and reading the wrong things in between the lines. So I think there's going to be more authentic work is going to be more highly valued. And like when I talk to artists, and I know this illustrator who he's very frustrated with AI, because he's like, I've lost like 4 clients recently because people are just using AI, corporate clients. I'm like, but if you're really good at your craft, AI is going to be able to get pretty damn close. But there's a difference between original painting and a print.
And I think there's still
print looks like you can't tell
people
the difference.
People cared way back when what was it, like A Million Little Pieces or something, when we found out that it wasn't real, but we love the story, but people care if it's real. And they're still gonna So that'll be an interesting thing that we'll see. But I'm more interested in if we want to bring this back to real estate, if we're researching stuff in real estate, I always got to kind of check the sources, whether it's whether it's a census or anything like that. So chase those sources down, and when you're when you're reading it, it does pay to dig in.
I see it it'll grab a real number but attribute to the wrong actual data point. And so what was I looking for? It was unemployment rate or something. I was like, help me. I'm doing right up on the economy. And I just pull all the most recent macro econ figures and GDP, unemployment, all this stuff. I'm like, this is great. Cite all the sources, and it has all the sources cited. Then I'm like, no, I'm like, nope, some of these are wrong. And I clicked on the source, and I could see here's the correct figure, and then a couple lines over, it took the number that it used. It was on for it attributed to something different, and I'm like, and I had to tell it, I'm like, recheck, you've screwed up here. Try it again. But it's far from perfect, but still fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's obviously
So
going to permeate through all industries.
So other than that, so there's like these like research and like talking to you and conveying this information. Did they ever talk about other forms of AI? And there are other AI. There's AI stuff that we use with like a real page or something. And it's what is it kind of thinking about? What
The multifamily industry and AI.
Yeah.
So from a lot of different perspectives. So first, before we get into just the step takeaway, which I think was really important, is that in all industries today, in multifamily,
Yep.
asset managers, property managers, owners, we're really quick to band-aid over solutions with a software fix.
Yep.
Because there's a million SaaS companies that are selling some solution, all targeted and focused on identifying a pain point in your business, and we've got this magic solution that's going to just fix it. And what we've seen happen is that sometimes it's like problems get layered over with solutions, and you buy one piece of software, you think that's going to fix the problem, and it fixes some of the problems, but not all of them, or it creates another problem. So you you stack all this software, and the whole idea is at some point is to do it better or to do it cheaper.
Yeah.
And if you're paying for all this software, it's not cheaper all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And so where it was one of the best, I thought, I comments that I took home is that instead of trying to solve all your problems with another software fix or AI, AI will be able to do this for us. Like sometimes, like so many of the problems are with people.
Yeah.
People
It's the
challenges.
end user.
Or drive. You're trying to drive where costs are driven. A lot of it's like turnover, high turnover industry. And if we spent a little bit more time, and this isn't exactly answering your question, but if we spent a little bit more
It's
time
relevant.
doing a better job recruiting, better job onboarding people, a better job training, and then giving a sense in helping them chart a path to success, and what the next steps in their career could be. Providing a little bit of hope for the future.
Yeah.
If we focused a little, take a little bit of your budget on software, just focus on better onboarding and people stuff, you're going to be able to reduce a lot more expenses than a new band-aided
Yeah.
tech
Well, those
solution.
are the people that are using it, and you can have really expensive stuff if it's not used right. Then
But I mean, in terms of how AI is being implemented into multifamily today, Nikki Tag, Gray Residential, she uses AI, and there's probably
she's generating text and generating
she's
pictures.
generating text, she's generating images. So whether that's like it's internal communications, flyers, some even like policies, and you have to review all of it.
Yeah.
But
That's
it's
boilerplate though.
but-
That's not really like that kind of stuff. I feel like AI would be really good at the boilerplate kind of boring stuff, and
Or for example, we use it all the time is, or our team uses it all the time, how to respond to a resident. There's an issue, or you're trying to explain that we're changing the way we're charging for utilities. How do I say this in a nice way? And instead of like just banging your head against the wall for 30 minutes of trying to like wordsmith this email, you can say, this is what I've got. It's not perfect. Can you fix it for me? This is what I'm trying to accomplish.
like conversations that you wouldn't have a whole lot, so you don't have a whole lot of practice in. That's interesting.
Yeah, and awkward conversations.
Yeah.
How do I word this email? Where do I start? And instead of working on it for 30 minutes, you can work on it for 10 minutes, and feel confident that like I've got something good here because like the AI is like is saying that it works, and I agree that it works, and I've given some input, so I feel like it's mine. It's not just completely canned. And it's quality in, quality out. But we're also, we're looking into some software on like the revenue management side that uses AI to better understand what our availability is, kind of what our occupancy is, what our past rent history is, to try to find kind of an optimized position in the market. It's using like anonymous data.
So much of that's like computers. I don't know where AI and machine learning.
Well, a lot of it's a
diverge, and
black
like,
box.
Yeah,
also.
yeah, yeah, and or like algorithm or whatever. You call it what you will. Like it is interesting. Things are getting. Sometimes I'd rather feed it through the computer than an AI because maybe that rent growth that you're looking for is a little different. But I think it's interesting how much it is growing, but also like it's not taking over everything. So I was terrified when AI started that it was just going to take over everything, and I think that they're still trying to take us. They're, the owners of the AI are still saying that it's going to take over. They want us to believe that, but more and more, I think people are learning to work with
Like
it.
a Project Stargate.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah. So,